Let's jump to love-hate pass catches, where we heard from Rashee Rice on his big return last weekend.
Yeah, it meant a lot more today. You don't really notice how much you love something until it's gone or possibly could be gone. I was able to get a glimpse of that, and, I don't ever want to feel that again. So just being able to be out here with my brothers, that's like the most love I've had in a long time. I felt great. I think it's a glimpse of what's possible and what's to come. This was our first game being able to play with each other. Like you said, Coach said I had, a minimum amount of plays, so maybe with more plays, more touchdowns, not even just from me, but from everybody else, from, just being on the field consistently.
Okay, Rashee Rice.
Yes.
Excellent return. He's heavily featured.
He did a lot on the minimum amount of plays.
Yep.
10 targets, 4 red zone targets. Targeted on 52% of his routes. When he was out there running a route, Patrick Mahomes was looking for him over half of them, and that's right. You see him right there.
Wide receiver
number 4.
Wow.
Wide receiver 4.
Like his jersey number.
Yes, damn right. You're like, why is Rashee Rice on the love list? Because he's a top 4 wide receiver for me this week. Jay Croucher. He gets my Commanders. My Commanders are terrible, right? They're allowing the most yards per game to the slot so far this season. No, they're allowing the most yards per game to the slot for the season, which is where Rashee Rice lines up a decent amount as a kind of a big slot for the Chiefs. And they're also giving up the 4th most yards after catch to opposing wide receivers. So, again, this is Monday Night Football, like big stage. I think, you talk about Mahomes and sort of like this, padding the stats a little bit. I did a radio interview earlier today, and I was asked about Mahomes and, can he keep this up? And I said, yes, because I said, I don't have a stat to prove this. We've talked about this on the show a little before. I don't have a stat to prove this. I can't prove it in a court of law. But I think Patrick Mahomes, after having the worst game of his professional career in the Super Bowl, given all the stakes and the stage of that, everything, like I would argue that's the worst game of his career. And just getting their asses kicked by the Eagles, that Patrick Mahomes came to the season and said, with a chip on his shoulder, saying, like, listen, I'm still a bad man. And no one's, everyone's saying the dynasty's over. I want to go scorched earth here. I want to prove them wrong. As a person, he's not that guy to talk boastfully. He's always respectful at the podium, and he's just, he does it with his actions, not with his words. But that's what I think. I think he wants to put up numbers every single week. I think he wants to win the MVP this year. Obviously, he wants to get the team back to the Super Bowl. So, I think he will continue to pad the stats, including against my Commanders on a national platform, Monday Night Football.
Yep.
At home. This is a perfect setup for Mahomes to just go nuclear.
Yep. I will say as well, Mahomes' credit, I think he is padding the stats a little bit with the touchdown stuff in close. He will, to his credit, which is what Aaron Rodgers never will do. If it's 3rd and 17, he'll chuck it up for grabs, and he doesn't care if he gets picked because he doesn't care about the interceptions. But, and that's what you should do on 3rd and 17, just chuck it up because otherwise you're punting anyway. So Mahomes, still the best quarterback in the game. T. Higgins, playing with the second best quarterback in the game, Joe Flacco. And he gets a very favorable matchup against the Jets, who might be missing Sauce Gardner.
Look, the Jets are a bottom 10 run defense. They have a top 5 worst offense, and then they have a top 10 pass defense. Now, we know why that is.
Nice use of air quotes.
Right. It definitely needed them. But this is all about having Joe Flacco. This is all about the volume. 45 passing attempts in Joe Flacco's first start, 47 in the next one. So you get that. That's plenty for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. He's had at least 5 receptions with 8 targets in his 2 starts with Joe Flacco. So now you think about all of that. Then you think about the Jets, and we could talk about whether Sauce Gardner will play or not. But hell, if I'm throwing the ball up and it's T. Higgins versus Sauce Gardner, give me T. Higgins all day just on the strength. So all that being said, love T. Higgins this week because obviously we love Jamar Chase every week.
Yeah, I would say it's very strange, but the 2 most interesting players in football to me this week, 1, Oronde Gadsden, who we're going to talk about a bit later, and 2, Jamar Chase. Because we've never seen anyone just get like 17, 18 targets a game. Yeah. Could this, like Joe Flacco is a complete outlier. Amari Cooper, in his last 3 games with Joe Flacco, had like 450 receiving yards. Like, what if Joe Flacco, this is what he does, because he wants to get the ball out quick, he doesn't want to get hit, and he's just going to throw to the first read, and the first read separates him.
And at some point, we know he's going to start throwing them picks, but if you're throwing picks, throwing the ball to Jamar Chase, you ain't going to get in trouble for that.
Yeah. All right, question from Bobby Showtime. Great name. T. Higgins or Rome Odunze rest of season, Matthew?
It's close. I'm going to say Rome Odunze here. I just, again, we love the Flacco story. He's still an over 40-year-old quarterback behind a bad offensive line. I feel better about the young offense in Chicago there with Odunze. So it's close, but especially, by the way, because there is a chance that Jamar Chase gets a 40% target share.
Let's see. He's had a 42% target share with Flacco so far.
So I'm going to say Rome Odunze here.
Yeah, it
you guys
is
agree?
close. No, I do agree because there's going to be those games, and this even happens with Joe Burrow when it comes to T. Higgins. There's going to be those games where it's 3 catches for 13 yards. Like, T. Higgins is just going to have them type of games.
Yep, no, I agree. I think the other thing, too, why Rome has fallen a little bit is that the Bears have had run game scripts the past 4 weeks and all these wins. The Bears are solid, but they're not going to be playing with the lead so frequently. The Bears, they go head-to-head with the Ravens and Zay Flowers. Matthew?
So far this season, really quietly, he's at a 29% target share. He's had at least 8 targets in 4 out of 6 games. And the reason I bring up that 8-target mark that he's had in the majority of his games this year is that wide receivers that see at least 7 targets against the Bears so far this year, they're averaging 18.9 fantasy points per game. Bears have allowed multiple touchdown passes to wide receivers in back-to-back games, and so Zay Flowers out of the bye. This is all assuming Lamar Jackson is back, by the way.
He'll be back.
If we wake up tomorrow and Cooper Rush is starting or Tyler Huntley, all bets are off.
Cancel
this
it.
off. Don't clip this. Don't clip this
Just
out
kidding.
and then just say, wow, why does Barry love Zay Flowers? No. This is just all assuming
I don't know.
Lamar Jackson
Cooper
is back.
Rush will get you. He'll get Zay
get the ball
about 5
back.
for 50.
I do think, given the way the season is and coming out of the bye, I do think the Ravens' offense is going to be a lot better, and the team is going to be a lot better. So I have Zay Flowers, believe it or not, as a top 10 play this week. He's my wide receiver 9.
Yep, I like it.
Yes, the Zay Daddy.
Okay, all right. A.J. Brown makes the love list for me going up against the Giants. I think the Eagles really figured something out last week against Minnesota. That's the best game I've seen Jalen Hurts play regular season in his career. He was magnificent, perfect passer rating against the Brian Flores defense. And the key thing with A.J. Brown, it's not so much anything statistically, it's just that he just looks right again. And he didn't look right the first month of the season. He wasn't creating separation. He wasn't beating man coverage. He'd look like the old A.J. Brown against the Vikings. He also looked fine when they played the Giants a couple of games ago. It's just the rest of the game got out of hand. I do think there is a revenge factor that will loom large with the Eagles here as they look to stick it to the Giants and don't want to go 0-2 in that matchup this season. Another kind of revenge matchup, although apparently not a revenge matchup, Matthew. The Steelers face Tucker Kraft and the Packers.
Yeah, the Tuckler, the Tuck Daddy, Tucker McGee. I don't know, I'm making this up. What I'll say is that it's a nice matchup against the Steelers. For the Steelers defense, as we've talked about, the Steelers defense is not the Steelers defense of old. You can honestly run on them and you can throw on them, especially if you're a tight end. Pittsburgh has given up at least 14 points to a tight end in 3 of their past 4 games. They allow the 5th most yards per game to opposing tight ends. So you see it right there, Tucker Kraft, my tight end 5. Sunday night at Pittsburgh. We will be there, by the way, on the turf at Acrisure Stadium. Jay, Lawrence, and myself for fantasy football pregame this Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.